All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to this evening's regular business meeting. We will have our invocation from Pastor Roosevelt Holton, Senior Pastor of New Foundation International Ministries in College Park, be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would, please stand with me. And Pastor, if you could just pray for those that were victims of Hurricane Harvey as well. Thank you.
Let us pray. All wise and almighty God, creator of everything that exists, author and finisher of our faith, giver of every good and perfect gift, we come this afternoon to say thank you. Thank you for the many blessings that you have bestowed upon each and every one of us. God, we thank you right now for this time together as citizens of Clayton County. God, as we come to discuss the business of your people, God, we ask that right now that you bless us. We thank you for the gifts, talents, and abilities of those who stand in the leadership position on this night. God, let us know as leaders that we're dealing with human beings and that we're not only creatures of logic, but we're creatures of beliefs and faith also. We're creatures of emotion. So God, as we go forth in this business tonight, we ask that you let us to understand that every decision that is to be made needs to be made with integrity, justice, wisdom, but it also needs to be sprinkled with a generous portion of love and compassion. Now, God, we pray for those who are victims of the tragedy in Texas and Louisiana. God, we stand with them right now. We ask that you let them to know that we stand arm in arm with them. Our prayers go out to them. God, we ask that you even bless those who may be in harm's way of that which is to come as we monitor and we chart the course of the hurricane coming up through the Caribbean now. God, we know that you're in charge, and we know that everything will be done according to your will and your glory. These blessings we pray in your Son, Jesus' name, and all the saints said amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening and welcome to the September 5th, 2017 regular business meeting. The first order of business is the adoption of the agenda. Does any member want to offer any amendments?
I do.
Commissioner Evans.
Thank you. Speaking with, thank you. Item number 13. I'd like to propose we change item 13 to a discussion item, the topic of the blight tax. I think it's substantial enough that we should talk about it before we vote on it. So I'd like to just move that before item 12 so that 11 and 12 will be, or change that in number 12 so that 11 and 12 will be discussion items.
Is there a second on that?
Second that.
Those in favor, aye.
All right.
Opposed? It's unanimous.
Also, item number 15 regarding the feasibility study on South Lake 75. I spoke with Nickel Works and some other commissioners. I'd like to remove that from the agenda this evening.
Is there a second on it?
I second that.
Those in favor, aye.
All right.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay. 3-2, it passes.
And lastly, items number 25, 26, and 27. I'd like to ask those to be taken off the agenda.
What happened?
Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay.
Nay. Can we have discussions on these items, or is that not allowed, Mr. Chairman? Because it seems like a lot of our agenda is being cut up. And we received this early on.
Well, to that point, yeah, we've had discussions after discussions on it, so at this point, we'll just move on. Next item, Madam Clerk.
Are there any further amendments? Hearing none, may we have a motion to adopt the agenda with the approved amendments?
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous.
Approval of the August 15, 2017 regular business meeting minutes.
Is there a motion? I'll make the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous.
The board has two proclamations to present this evening. The first proclamation recognizes September 17th through September 23rd as Constitution Week, celebrating the daughters of the American Revolution, as presented by Chairman Turner. Will the daughters of the American Revolution that are present please come forward as the commissioners join you for the presentation of the proclamation?
And the proclamation reads, Clayton County recognizes Constitution Week, September 17th through the 23rd, 2017. Whereas, September 17th, 2017 begins the national celebration of Constitution Week. The Constitution of the United States of America stands as a testament to the tenacity of Americans throughout history to maintain their liberties and freedom and to ensure those inalienable rights for every American. And whereas, this year marks the 230th anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention. And whereas, it is the belief of the Daughters of the American Revolution, DAR, that those who wrote the Constitution believed that no government can create freedom, but that government must guard freedom rather than encroach upon the freedoms of its people. And whereas, the Constitution is recognized as an icon of freedom for people around the world, and the Daughters of the American Revolution have actively supported the principles of our Constitution. And whereas, the tradition of celebrating the Constitution began in 1955 when the DAR petitioned our Congress of the United States of America. The congressional resolution was later adopted and signed into law on August 2, 1956, by President Dwight D. Eisenhower. And whereas, the goals of the celebration are to emphasize citizens' responsibilities for protecting and defending the Constitution, preserving it for posterity, and inform the people that the Constitution is the basis for America's great heritage and the foundation for our way of life, and encourage the study of the historical events which led to the framing of the Constitution in September 1787. Now, therefore, I, Jeffrey E. Turner, Chairman, on behalf of the Clayton County Board of Commissioners, do hereby proclaim the week of September 17th through the 23rd, 2017, as Constitution Week in Clayton County, Georgia. I encourage all citizens to read and study this historical document that serves as the foundation of which our great nation was built upon. In witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of Clayton County, Georgia, to be affixed this 5th day of September in the year 2017. Jeffrey E. Turner, Chairman.
And the next proclamation for this evening, Clayton County recognizes Doug Barron and the Georgia Ovarian Cancer Alliance work during September Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month, as presented by Commissioner Gregory.
And the proclamation reads, Clayton County, Georgia recognizes the Georgia Ovarian Cancer Alliance, GOCA, during National Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month, September 2017. Whereas, more than 21,000 of our mothers, daughters, wives, and sisters will be diagnosed with ovarian cancer. It is the 5th leading cause of cancer deaths among women in the United States, simply because it is so difficult to detect. Doctors and patients alike too often dismiss the vague symptoms. And whereas, the Georgia Ovarian Cancer Alliance works daily to make ovarian cancer a winning cancer. Winning meaning that one day this cancer will also have an early detection and survival rate like that of breast cancer and others where research has made it easier to detect and treat. GOCA works hard to bring awareness and action to this disease and is present to help those women battling it. GOCA also educates others about the signs and symptoms of this disease. 3/4 of ovarian cancer diagnoses are made after women are already suffering through late stages of the disease. Sadly, too often the battle is lost. Early detection remains the most valuable weapon for survival against ovarian cancer. While early detection is the most valuable weapon, there is still not a simple early detection method. GOCA sponsors the Survivor Teach the Doctor, a forum where ovarian survivors educate medical students about their early symptoms in hopes that doctors will become more cognizant of those symptoms that could eventually lead to ovarian cancer diagnosis. And whereas, every day across our country, GOCA, along with other families, friends, and communities, lend their support to empower those who are fighting for their lives, offering encouragement and bringing hope for a free from ovarian cancer diagnosis. GOCA does this through advocacy workshops at churches, community groups, HOA meetings, company lunch and learns, and to anyone who will listen. 2 of GOCA's other advocacy and fundraising events include the Shaken Not Stirred annual gala and the annual Teal Trot 5K. GOCA also provides the signature bag of hope to every Georgia woman diagnosed with ovarian cancer who requests it. And whereas, during the month of September, dedicated to promoting ovarian cancer awareness, our county pauses to recognize GOCA and advocacy organizations like it. We lift up those who know the pain of this disease, honor those we have lost to it, and renew our commitment to it until it is completely eradicated. We stand with all those who continue to fight this devastating disease, the survivors, the caretakers, and support systems, as well as all those who have lost loved ones to this dreadful disease. We also honor the medical researchers and healthcare providers who tirelessly battle this disease daily. Now, therefore, I, Sona Singleton Gregory, Commissioner, District 1, and survivor, do hereby acknowledge and recognize this work of Georgia Ovarian Cancer Alliance during this month of September 2017, National Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month. I encourage all citizens, government agencies, organizations, healthcare providers, and research institutions to join me in awareness, knowledge, and action. In witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of Clayton County, Georgia, to be affixed this 5th day of September in the year 2017. Sona Singleton Gregory, Commissioner.
The board will now hear a presentation as provided by Fire Chief EMA Director Landry Murkison on the automatic vehicle locator system.
And while we are preparing to set up for the presentation, I'd just like to take a moment to give my thanks and to acknowledge Commissioner Gregory for her efforts in spearheading our efforts to send water to the victims of Hurricane Harvey. With that being said, yes, give her a round of applause. And with that being said, our collection points are at each police precinct, each fire station, and here at 112. So your donations of water go a long way. It's times like these that we truly have to come together as a nation to help those who are in need, and I appreciate everybody who's going to take this opportunity to make donations. So thank you for what you do. Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and if I may piggyback on that before we get into the presentation, I just wanted to give an update on where we are with collections. So as of 4:30 this afternoon when I received this update, we had collected 499 cases of water to date, as well as 117 cases of potato chips and numerous other miscellaneous items such as hygiene products, cleaning items, sunscreen, canned goods, and other toiletry items. So the storage unit that we secured for free, 52 feet long and 16 feet wide, is nearly full. So we thank you to our citizens for stepping up, and we have much more space to fill.
So I stand corrected. We're collecting more than just water, but at the same time, please, I encourage everybody, if you're going to donate something that can be very useful to the victims. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'm pleased and honored to come before you tonight and discuss a little bit more in detail our automatic vehicle location and mobile computing terminal program that we have going on, collectively known as AVL MCT. Just a little bit of historical data about this project. This project was actually part 4 of the PSDN project, which was started back in 2008 as a part of the 2009 SPLOST. The whole PSDN project came together as a vision from Chief Cohilas at the time to unify our public safety agencies and bring us all together as far as our operations, how we can communicate with each other, and then how we can be better served and be more accountable and responsive to the needs of our citizens. This effort, as I said, has been a collective from the beginning in an attempt to unify all three, and I think that's evidenced by our Chief of Police being here with me tonight for part of this, as well as Sheriff Hill. And Sheriff, if you'd like to say one or two things.
Well, I'd just like to say I'm in support of it. I think it's a brilliant idea. Imagine this. Imagine a woman's being assaulted and the 911 dispatcher can look and see where all the cars are. The sheriff's cars, the PD cars, and let's say hypothetically my car is just a half a block away. Then she knows to send that car instead of having to dispatch blindly or having to ask if there's anyone in the area. So it brings us to the 21st century. I think it's a brilliant idea. I want to give kudos to Alex Cohilas on it, and I hope that you would help us with this.
Thank you, sir. Being ever mindful of the projects and the direction of the board, all of the programs that even the ones we've had in place, we've gone back and realigned them with certain BOC focus pillars to ensure that everything we're doing is in lockstep with the movement of the board. And as it pertains to this particular initiative as part of the overall PSDN project, this one falls up underneath growth management, which if we look and boil down into the tenets of what growth management actually looks to do is to create nimble operations, forward planning with a technology backbone, leveraging our internal talent, and of course putting citizens first. And that's exactly what this initiative does. One of the few technology initiatives we have that you can put a check mark by each one of these bullet points under growth management. And as we run through this presentation, we'll discuss each one of those a little bit better detail. But as I stated, this is an interdepartmental initiative. Each agency along the way has had buy-in into the design of this program, the implementation into this program, the programming, and ultimately how it will be used and leveraged to benefit the citizens of our county and the safety of our officers and public safety employees. So when this was done, the public safety agencies in the county really had a couple of different needs. The first off was the ability to transmit real-time persistent emergency vehicle location and information between public safety and E911 dispatch. The second was technology that allowed for the continued operational growth of dispatch without the need for additional staff. And then the ability of existing emergency services tools such as our LifePack, our cardiac monitors, to always have always-on internet connectivity. So when we look at that and you start talking about, well, you communicate with your emergency vehicles now. Well, that's very true. But if you look at how the fire department deploys its assets and its resources, we have 15 polygons on a map that determine our response zones. So instead of us looking at a geographic location and dispatching that way, the computer system will actually look at the current location of that vehicle on a map and then dispatch by the current location, not just a giving set. So even though a call may be in Station 4's first in territory, if Engine 1 happens to be closer, it'll send them. ultimately decreasing response time and getting our assets and our resources to the citizens in a much quicker fashion. So to address the needs that we had, we came up with two separate solutions that really work together as one. The first being automatic vehicle locators. The two main tenets of this is equips public safety vehicles with automatic vehicle locators, or AVL, GPS capabilities, and then Wi-Fi internet connectivity within each vehicle. The second phase of that is our actual mobile data terminals. This is how we will interact with dispatch. Instead of having to get over the radio to tell them, hey, I'm going here, I'm going there, we can send them a message. It cuts down on unnecessary radio traffic and decreases the likelihood that that dispatcher will miss an important piece of information or a potential call for help. Also provides in-vehicle computer access to county dispatch and records management system. PD, fire, EMS, SO will have more data at their fingertips than we've ever had before. So instead of us having to pick up a phone call, get on the radio and call, we can just get it from the computers that will be in our vehicles. What are the benefits of the automatic vehicle locator? Dispatch information is sent directly to computers in the vehicles, eliminating the chance error for verbal instruction, allows existing dispatch staff to handle more calls, decreases our response times to emergency incidents, and as we talked about, the closest vehicle is selected using maps and CAD for each call. It also provides our employees with automated GPS routing of vehicles to the call locations. And then, of course, the main priority, increased officer safety and responder safety by allowing quick assignment of backup units based on location. When we get to the slide, Major Daniel will share a real-life account that we had just not too long ago involving an officer, which had we had this system, we could have gotten to him much quicker than what we actually did had it not been for the efforts of one of our citizens. The benefits of the mobile data terminals, like I said, real-time information sharing between dispatch and field personnel. The other neat thing about this is it also facilitates information sharing between personnel, car-to-car messaging, unit-to-unit messaging. PD can interact with fire units that may be in the field and staged in a particular location depending on the call. Once again, cutting down the unnecessary radio chatter that goes on. What are the operational benefits that the new solution can include? At this time, I'll ask Major Daniel to come up and address the operational benefits from her side.
Good evening. Just wanted to kind of explain to you all some of the sheer volume that we're dealing with in reference to the dispatchers and what they're actually doing on a daily basis. Dispatchers, fiscal year ending 2017, they actually entered into the CAD system 424,925 calls. This breaks down to 1,164 calls per day, 48.5 calls per hour that the dispatchers were actually typing in information. Now, if you go back and compare that to the stats from 2015 and fiscal year ending 2016, we noticed a trend. The increase of volume of calls that are coming in consistently are increasing by an average of 4%. Now, if you go and you add that, in addition to that 4% increase, we're still working with the same amount of dispatchers, of course, that we've had for the past 3 or 4 years. And of course, with that being said, we're truly doing more with less. The number of radio clicks, or we call it key up time, when an officer or a public safety personnel clicks the mic, anytime a call comes in through 911, let's just say if someone calls into 911, that particular call on average will require an interaction with the public safety personnel of 4 interactions per call. So if you take those calls, those radio clicks, and multiply that times the number of hours or per calls per hour, you're looking at 194 clicks or interactions per hour. If you multiply that by the number of radio clicks over a 12-month period, you're looking at over 1,699,000 clicks or interactions per year. That is a lot of information. The AVL system is going to reduce the amount of verbal interactions. Right now, what happens is they have to manually type in every call that is dispatched. The officer will have the ability to look on the computer, see that a call has come in, be able to press a button, it will send the message to the dispatcher so the dispatcher knows that the officer or the firefighter has actually acknowledged the call. They will show themselves en route. Now that caller or that dispatcher can spend more time with the caller taking that information, because currently they're taking the call, they're dispatching simultaneously, all at the same time. So this will certainly free up some of that time for the dispatchers, again, to get that essential information and essentially get it right. As Chief Murkinson mentioned prior to, and Sheriff Hill can certainly testify to this, as far as one of his deputies was dispatched to a call, it was a help call, was dispatched to the call. En route to the call, he called out, advised the dispatcher he was en route. A few moments later, came over the radio and advised that he had been in an accident. It was a serious head injury. All he could advise was that he was injured. He could not tell us where he was. He was bleeding profusely from his head, couldn't even see anything. So for several minutes, you had police, sheriff's deputies, and fire personnel looking for this deputy. Eventually, a Good Samaritan stopped, picked up his radio, spoke into the radio, and was able to tell us this deputy's location. That is how we found that deputy. That deputy required 35 stitches to his head. He did have injuries. We're happy to say he is doing very well today, but who knows what could have happened if that Good Samaritan hadn't stopped, how much longer it would have taken us to actually locate that deputy. The AVL system would also give 911 the ability to track how long a call is being held and the reaction time, which includes the time from the call being dispatched to dispatched personnel actually arriving. This is something that's huge, especially for those of us who have ever had to hold on 911 waiting for someone to answer the call. We would be able to better analyze the statistical data and determine what we're doing right in addition to what we can improve upon. And of course, that's something that we all want for our citizens. Fire and police would be able to see a call on the computer, and like I said, press the button. This in itself will reduce the response time. Clayton County Police Department, Fire EMS, and the Sheriff's Office all are affiliated with accredited agencies that require us to track this information. Now it's having to be done manually, and it entails quite a bit of manpower for us to ensure we get them the accurate data. So the AVL, as you can see on here, it's going to we'll spend less time on the radio, more time on calls, ensuring accurate information is given from police to dispatchers, dispatchers to police. Be able to track the reaction time as far as time being dispatched to mobilized. And of course, the real-time status reporting. We could actually tell where our deputies are when they're serving papers, where our officers are when they're out on calls, and improve the safety for our officers and reduce the actual time it'll actually take to dispatch those calls.
Thank you, Major. So a couple of you have asked, what is this going to look like on the view? So this is a snapshot that we captured. So this would be a more global view. This obviously isn't all the units we have in the county. This is just so you could actually tell there's a map under it. If we listed all the fire fleet, all of our PD and SO vehicles, it would just be one big blur over the map. But this will kind of give you an idea of what a supervisor, a chief officer such as the sheriff would actually be able to pull up and see real-time information where their units are, and then by vehicle color can tell, are they on scene, are they en route to the hospital, are they at the hospital, where exactly is that unit, and what are they doing. The other benefit to this is piggybacking off of what Major Daniel said, is in the event we do get an officer down, a call for help, many times when they hit their man down button on their radios, they can't have a conversation with you about what's going on. They're either actively engaged, perhaps in a fight, in a gun battle, or maybe they themselves have become a victim. All they can do is tell you they need help, but we're not really 100% sure of where they are if they're not on a call. If they were en route, they could be within a 5 or 6 mile location. We would instantly be able to go to this map, find that unit, click on it, and it would give us the lat and long of where that car is sitting. And then all of the other officers around that unit could also see it and immediately respond without the need for a bunch of radio chatter. So officer safety goes through the roof. Toward the end of July, we did a budget amendment that brought the total project budget for this of $570,000 and put it into a project account in 911. Second meeting in August, there was a budget carry forward done that moved that money from last fiscal year into this fiscal year so we could continue with the project. And to date, we've expended $463,066.46 of it, which represents the bulk of the technology, the bulk of the software and the hardware, and the training cost. And we do have some remaining smaller expenditures that we need to make. But the total budget was brought forward in last year's budget and then moved to this year. So we are well on track. Assuming that all the equipment and everything stays on track and vendor availability for training stays put, we have an estimated soft launch of December of 2017, at which time we will actually operate on 2 systems until we make sure that we've accounted for all glitches and bugs as anything with a new system. So we will work in the 2 systems and then probably early 2018 cut over to just this system as our primary source of dispatching. So with that, I thank you for your tentative. I know it was fast, but I was trying to meet the time requirement. So with that, we'll entertain questions.
Any questions for Chief Murkison?
Excuse me, Chairman. I just want to say thank you for that. I think it really helps when you can give a presentation as thorough as you just gave. It helps us with our level of understanding because quite often we're looking at these budgetary items and we're just looking at them line by line. But when you were able to give the amount of supportive information that you just gave, it really helps both us as the board members as well as the community to understand how we're spending the tax dollars. So thank you so much to the entire team. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for your presentation. Thank you, Sheriff and Chief Woodall, for being here. Congratulations, Major, on your promotion. Appreciate all the work that you've done on this.
And if I may, I don't want to leave out probably one of the more important members of our team, Director Brookings and his staff at IT. We couldn't do any of this without him. So thank you to him and his team and, of course, the Office of the COO for their support. So thank you.
Appreciate it.
The board will now consider the request of Chief Financial Officer Ramona Bivens.
Please take them together unless someone wants to single one out.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chair, and Commissioners. I have 8 items for your consideration this evening. And all of these are for fiscal year 2017. Budget Amendment 2-36 is for community development to amend in additional revenue in the amount of $30,050 to cover the cost of additional fees and credit card services charged for fiscal year 2017. Budget Amendment 2-37 is for the Federal Narcotics Condemnation Fund to amend an additional revenue in the amount of $50,148 to cover the cost of additional supplies, credit card service charges, and meeting expenses for police narcotics. 2-38 is for State Narcotics Condemnation Fund for the District Attorney's Office. It's to amend in revenue in the amount of $43,803 to cover the cost of additional regular salaries and benefit expenses used to pay supplements approved by the Board of Commissioners in fiscal year 2017. 2-39 is for the Drug Abuse Treatment and Education Fund to amend in revenue in the amount of $10,000 to cover the cost of additional service fees for fiscal year 2017. 2-40 is for information technology to amend the budget to cover the cost of personnel and uniform rental expenses for fiscal year 2017 in the amount of $8,002. 2-41 is for drug court program service fee to amend an additional revenue in the amount of $28,500 to cover the cost of contract service fees, supplies, and training and travel expenses for fiscal year 2017. 2-42 is for the Clerk of State Court. It's to amend in additional revenues in the amount of $16,188 and decrease expenditures of $18,660, and increase expenditures for $34,848 to cover the cost of other contract service fees and training and travel expenses for fiscal year 2017. And the last item is Budget Amendment 2-43 for Magistrate Court. Is to amend in revenue to cover the cost of personnel expenses for fiscal year 2017. The total amount is $67,189.
Okay, do I have a motion? Is there a second? Any questions on any of the items?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Warner.
And I apologize, I did not have these supporting documents beforehand. We got it corrected. I do have a question on the credit card fees. Why, I forgot to ask earlier, why wouldn't that have been taken into account with the budget originally?
These are additional, well, we did take that into account, but as more people pay, then those fees will go up. And according to Mr. GK, they've had an increase in the people paying, the customers paying, and at this time, the county is absorbing that cost
Oh,
for those additional fees.
Why
We're
we-
we're discussing that. He and I have had a discussion about it, and we're working with the attorney to come up with something. Our attorney informed us that the board would have to approve us passing that fee along to the consumers that use that service.
okay. I would love to be able to talk about that, because anytime you pay for something, we know that the customer
I've already asked
incurs the
about that.
convenient pay fee.
Yeah, I've already asked about that, so, because when I saw that, I asked the same question, why are we paying for it? Why is it not being passed? And he advised me that that was something that the board would have to approve for us to do.
When was it originally approved for us to be able to accept credit card payments?
I don't know when we started for this particular, in his department, community development. I know we're doing it in some other areas, and those fees are being passed to the customers and the new things that we've done. But where's Mr. GK? When did you start this?
And we can finish this offline. I would like to have a conversation. How did this get
I see. I
isolated
said
from the rest?
2009. It was done in 2009, so it was I think they may have been one of the first ones to do it, and at that time, they opted not to pass it to the customers. But since that time, of course, a lot of people are using that because it is a convenience, and so those fees are increasing.
Okay, wonderful.
Okay.
And excuse me, Chair, there was one other question that I had. The $10,000, I didn't have any back page support, and then as I looked at it, it just still didn't tell me a lot. And it's not a lot of money, but at the same token, that's another one.
The 239 for drug abuse treatment and education fund.
Yes, ma'am.
They have the general assistance expenses, and what we did, we moved money from other contractor service fees to cover that. It's a special revenue fund, so they have the funding available to do that.
Gotcha. All right, thank you. And again, I apologize.
That's okay.
I just got all this up online.
That's fine.
All right, any other questions? Hearing none, those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The board will consider request of Human Resources Director Pamela Ambles.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Good evening, Chairman, Vice Chair, and Commissioners. I hope you all had a wonderful Labor Day weekend. Human Resources, we have two requests for your consideration. On behalf of Parks and Recreation, Human Resources is requesting approval to delete one Recreation Coordinator of Therapeutics and to add one Program Coordinator. Currently, there are 8 Program Coordinators and 2 Recreation Coordinators of Therapeutics budgeted within Parks and Recreation. Director Hodges has indicated an increased workflow due to increased programming at the Jim Huey Recreation Center. If this request is approved, Director Hodges will appoint one Recreation Coordinator of Therapeutics to rotate among the centers, and he will assign the Program Coordinator to Jim Huey due to the increased workflow. Both positions are classified at grade 18, step 1, $36,239. Therefore, there is no budgetary impact in regards to this request.
Is there a motion? I'll make the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Probably moving second. Any questions? Hearing none, those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Next.
Thank you, Chairman. In regards to this, to the next request, you all should have a memo that was submitted to you earlier before the meeting got started. On behalf of Probate Court, Human Resources is requesting to add an associate judge at grade 33, step 1. Total compensation, including benefits, will be $101,530. We're also requesting to add a probate court clerk, grade 12, step 1. Total compensation, $41,309. We're requesting to delete a part-time associate judge, total comp, $53,825. We're also requesting to delete a probate court clerk senior at grade 16, step 1, total compensation $48,510, as well as delete a part-time mental health coordinator, total compensation $37,677.50. The initial calculations reflected a budgetary impact of $22,827. However, Judge Ferguson will utilize operation budget line items to manage the shortfall. Therefore, there will be no budgetary impacts to this request. It's Human Resources understanding that the CFO will present a request for a budget amendment to accommodate this request. Only two things I want to highlight in regards to this request. Under the current structure, we have only one judge who can sign orders and hear cases. Also, our probate court is classified as an Article 6 probate court, which means that we have a population, that we serve a population of over 90,000 citizens. And for this particular reason, Human Resources support the request and would appreciate your consideration.
All right, is there a motion? I'll make the motion. Is there a second? Is there a second?
I'm sorry, I second that.
Are there any questions?
I have some questions, and I'm so sorry, Judge Ferguson.
Ferguson, I'm ready to answer your question.
Yes, ma'am. I have a question. Previously, when I first got on the board, and again, I just got the supporting information, but we created an additional position. We had conversations. One of the things that I'm trying to figure out is where is the change coming about now versus when we made changes before? Didn't we add a position for you previously?
We did add a position. It was a paralegal position.
Okay.
The reason that was added was because I serve, we have 2 treatment facilities, psychiatric treatment facilities in our county. One is Anchor, one is Riverwood. The probate court is responsible for hearing cases whenever somebody is in that facility, regardless of how they got there, and wants to leave. And the doctor feels that that person should not leave, we have to have a hearing. When I first became the judge, if we had 1 hearing a month, we thought that was a lot. Slowly, as you know, mental health has increased, our awareness has increased, our beds have decreased. As a state, we're having a major problem. So it got to be where we'd have several a month. After that, the reason for the increase last year is in August of last year, Anchor Hospital went into a contract with Georgia Regional and started getting more people that went through the hospital. So currently, we actually have 2 or 3 cases a week. I heard 4 cases last week, got 3 cases this week. I think there's 1 set up for next week. We're in a lull right now, and I'm thankful for that because there's other stuff I have to do. But the purpose of that person was due to that influx of cases, because we had 1 paralegal actually processing those cases. I actually hear all those cases, so I have to stop and go and hear those cases. So that's the reason for that person being added, but that doesn't address the fact that you have courts of 100,000, even smaller courts where there's more than one judge, and you have the only probate court judge standing here before you trying to do everything that comes through that office, and I can't do it anymore. And so I want an associate judge so I can do the work. And it, you know, as I tell my staff, every file that we have represents a person or a family. But I'm only one person, but the cases shouldn't slow down because I can't do it. So I need the help.
Gotcha. Thank you so much.
Any other questions? I have just one. Go ahead.
I have a question, but it's for the CFO regarding the budgetary impact. Is that for just 1 year from here on out?
No, ma'am, that is, let me come, that's not working. No, Commissioner, that is for future years as well. What happened is I met with Judge Ferguson to advise her that there was not adequate funding for that. There were some other things that she had wanted to do, and I told her that our board does not entertain anything that's going to cost us money in additional years. The board doesn't have a palette for that. So what we did, I worked with her. She's reducing on her operation non-salary side. She's reducing her legal fees, court books and records, and computer supplies and dues and subscriptions. She said that she could do without that money this year and years forward, because she did understand that it wasn't something that was just for this year, but moving forward as well. So there should not be a budgetary impact moving forward either. Okay.
Okay, well, that's a great segue into my question, Judge Ferguson. With items that you're deleting and the positions that you're giving up, you just said you got a busy office.
Right.
You're not gonna come to us next year saying that you need these positions back or
what I
more
did-
funding. Now, I can understand as the county grows, but right now, go ahead.
What I did was I deleted some money. That's the reason it seems like money's being taken from several different places. I took a little money from several different places. As you know, my budget is very small. But I'm not going to come here in January and ask for more money. Now, in January, when we get ready for the new budget, I'll determine whatever the situation is then as far as next year. But, you know, I'm going to do what I can with what I've got. But I need another judge.
And it's all about justification, being able to justify why you would need additional money, but at the same time, don't rob Peter to pay Paul and then come back next week and say we need more money for Peter.
No, we're covered for this year. We're good.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Any other questions?
Barring somebody else getting a contract of some sort that impacts the county, so.
If I could just add one thing, if I may, I want to say thank you for at least coming to the board and speaking. But I will make this statement. We have state court judges that has been asking to, they see a lot of cases as well. And I think we really need to wrap our minds around trying to get them where they need to be as well, as we're discussing Judge Ferguson. Because we talk about keeping the community safe, but you got to be able to make sure as our officers are picking people up, that they are having that moment before the judge. And we are the lowest paid judges. We have the lowest paid judges throughout the state of Georgia in a lot of cases. So as we're discussing this item today, let's keep in mind that our state court judges also have been coming before this board and asking for some parity.
Any other questions, statements? Hearing none, those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you, Ms. Ambles.
You're welcome.
The next item is a discussion item on the healthcare benefits premium change. Ms. Ambles.
I know, a very unpopular topic, but I do thank you all for allowing me to present this agenda item. The main purpose of this presentation is to promote transparency between Human Resources, my COO, as well as the board. The discussion is focused on our lifestyle option for our medical plan. And Dietrich, do you? In 2007, the Clayton County Board of Commissioners approved the implementation of a lifestyle option plan for our self-funded medical plan. In 2012, the lifestyle option was rolled out to our Kaiser participants as well. The lifestyle option focuses on healthy behavior, preventive care, as well as cost savings. When it comes to healthy behavior, employees can earn reward points for various wellness initiatives, for participating in various wellness initiatives. An example of that is Chairman Turner's recent 5K event. That was a rewardable initiative. When it comes to preventive care, we focus on biometric screenings to assess several high-risk factors to promote preventive care. It's estimated that preventive illnesses account for up to 70% of all costs in illnesses. We also have our health risk assessments, and I'll be talking about that in just a moment, and I promise I'll make this short. I'm not gonna draw it out for too long, but we also have our health risk assessments as well that is a part of the preventive care. When it comes to cost savings, our employees receive a monthly premium deduction for participating in the lifestyle option. The discount can range from either $50 or $75 depending on the plan that the individual is enrolled in. The county does not see immediate savings. The focus is more long-term for the county, meaning that the preventive care in the healthy behavior, we are hoping that as a result of that we see lower claim cost, which would then translate to overall savings for the county. To be compliant, a lifestyle participant must participate in the year biometric screenings as well as the yearly health risk assessments. On the slide, you can see that the yearly biometric screenings, they take place on site. It's no cost to employees. It's a needle prick assessment of high risk factors such as cholesterol, mass body index, glucose levels, and so forth. The yearly health risk assessments, this is an online process with a focus on preventive care and healthy behavior. But in order to participate in the lifestyle option, these are the two requirements. For the sake of transparency, our records reflect that currently we have 68 self-funded medical participants and 428 Kaiser participants who are out of compliance with the requirements to remain in the lifestyle options. What that translates for employees, if we move them from the lifestyle option to the standard, they will experience an increase in their premium amounts. We definitely wanted to make the board aware of this because, as you know, this plan year, our employees experienced an increase in premiums as well as a contribution structure change. So we definitely wanted to let you all know what was going on with this. I know the question for you all as leaders is, did HR exercise due diligence? And I believe we did. We promptly notified our employees of the requirements. That was done by personal open enrollment materials that was sent to the employee's home address. During the process, we sent out a total of 4, I think it's 5, was at least 5 email blasts to the employees, constantly reminding them of these requirements. We had about 3 assessments in place per week. We did a Saturday assessment. The earliest assessment we started was at 7 o'clock in the morning. We did it late into the evening. So we tried to make sure that we gave adequate time, and this was a 4-week process. Our recommendation is to give the employees the opportunity to become compliant before we move them to the standard option. Up here on the slide is just a summary of the recommendation. We're asking for a 30-day window in order to give them that time. Biometric screenings, they will have to obtain the screening from their personal health care provider, but they can use their insurance to take care of that. health risk assessments. We're going to reopen the health risk assessments to them. And we're going to also have all hands on deck in human resources. We're going to contact each one of these employees to let them, make them aware of this particular issue, as well as to try to find out exactly why they did not follow through with the process, especially during this time when there has been controversial, I'm just going to have to say it, call it for what it is. Well, I won't say controversy, I'll say concerns over the increase in the medical premium. So we definitely want to know what's going on, because it may be something that we need to do or change on our end. Maybe something going on with the process, we just don't know, but we're definitely going to find out.
Who enrolled these approximate 500 people in the lifestyle in the first place? Did they do it voluntarily?
They do it voluntarily, yes,
Roughly
sir.
a third of our employees volunteered for something, but they're not participating.
They're not in compliance at
And
this
how
time.
long have they been enrolled?
Our planned year began July 1st. July
This year
1st,
or
of this,
last?
of this year. I'm sorry, I be thinking about the fiscal year, June 1st, Vice Chair. June 1st, I apologize.
Is that all the presentation?
No, just a few more. Our long-term focus, we want to work with the consultant to develop a written policy to govern the administration of the compliance process of the lifestyle option. What we have found is a long-standing practice. However, we have been unable to find a written policy. The consultants will become heavily involved in the open enrollment process, working with the employees one-on-one. Traditionally, that has not happened. Our small staff within the benefits division, which is about 6 and a part-time, they are the ones who have traditionally worked tirelessly to carry out open enrollment, but that is actually the job of our consultant. We're also in the process of assigning what we call health ambassadors. We may change that title later. We want to assign the health ambassadors to each department. The purpose of that is so that they can serve as a point of contact for our employees, engage in frequent communication. Commissioner Warner, you hosted an open meeting, benefits meeting not too long ago, and one of the things the employees did say is they want more communication from us, and frankly, I think we could have done a better job in communicating from a benefits perspective to our employees. So there's a lot of different things that the health ambassadors will do. Similar to what a consultant would do and similar to what the consultant will be doing, but the health ambassadors would just be someone on site that the employees will be able to relate to. We've also reinstituted mandatory insurance meetings for new employees with the purpose for them to be introduced to our benefits team, to be provided detailed summary of our current benefits, to help them through the enrollment process, as well as providing a brief tutorial on our Infinity HR, which is the way you register for your benefits. So we have reinstituted that. And I do believe now, Commissioner Warner,
Okay.
I'm finished.
I'm sorry, I wasn't trying to
Oh, no,
rush
no,
you.
you're fine. Are
We
there
just
any?
had the
are there-
questions coming, and I didn't want to be rude or
No, that's
just
okay.
interrupt.
Are there any questions?
Yes, sir. So, yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
First of all, thank you for that. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. And I do have a couple questions. I did hear the question asked by our chair about that people voluntarily enroll. Let me just really quickly once again share with you what I'll be doing through the month from October to November. I will travel throughout the state of Georgia, and I will help other employees enroll in their benefits. I will meet with them one-on-one. Each employee will come over and meet with myself as well as other benefit counselors. We will explain their benefits to them, their options, go over their dependents, go over what it means to enroll in each one of those plans, what their obligations are or requirements are.
Mhm.
I sit on a board, as you just said, we had in our meeting, and I thank you for coming aboard because you and Mr. COO have worked so hard and becoming educated on this because we've operated as two separate departments for many years, which I believe honestly has got us to this point to where we're trying to play catch up. But the bottom line is people enrolled in it on their own, quite often hastily, because they were trying to get back to work. I work part-time on this board. When I leave, I'm picking up Victoria, Libby, all my kids. I'm not thinking about benefits, and I work in that arena. I make it even more personal. Our very own Miss Karen Bohannon had to call me, hunt me down, and I work in this industry for the last 2 weeks to take care of something personally because I haven't thought about myself, because I put others before myself quite often. Our officers, our deputies, our firefighters, they do the same thing. I know them. I've been working with them for well over 10 years. So I'm so glad that you brought this to us. But I do feel that we need to give them the 30 days. I don't feel, as you said, that we've given the level of communication that we should to make people aware and understand what it means to actually be in the plan. And unfortunately, for the past, I would say about 10 years, well, not quite 10, about 5 years up until now, thanks to you all, we've almost had a hands-off approach where they need to enroll. It's up to them to enroll. And I'm going to be honest, I even heard some of that in tone. Didn't they enroll on their own? We can't do that.
Right.
I took a picture when I was over there at your office. It talked about the most valuable asset. Before we can buy another building, before we can build another building, if we don't invest in our people, I don't know. They're our most valuable asset.
They indeed are.
So I thank you. I'm hoping this board, I'm hoping that we would give them 30 days. And we need to get it right. Thank you so much for trying.
The level of service you received from Ms. Bohannon, because she did tell me, I've called Commissioner Warner, got to make sure we stay on it. That type of level of service is what you all will be seeing moving forward. Because before I became HR director, and I'm going to say this quickly because I know you all have had a long day, I was a participant. I paid my co-pays, utilized my insurance when I went to the doctor, and that was it. But there is so much more to it. What I'm hoping is that our employees will become partners rather than participants, and it's take us educating them and helping them to achieve that.
That's it.
So that's the level of service that we are looking forward to offering.
Thank you.
So kudos to Karen Bohannon.
Thank you. And if I could just make people understand, we're not saying we need to call every employee constantly. What we're saying is there's been a gap in communication, and it's evident. So now we're trying to make up for that gap. When if we do it right, starting next year, which I know we will do, which I have proposed before the board several times, I think we need to eat the cost and the increase, not just on the increase in assessment, but we need to eat the cost of the increase of the benefits that we passed along to the employees. We need to fix this. And for whatever reason, I have tried. Dr. Anderson, you can evaluate me, but I don't know anything else to do other than get out there and dance, rant and rave, cry. I've cried over this county. Oh, I'm here to tell you, I have. Because it was, as a benefit counselor, I used to go to the funerals. I used to go to the birthings of those babies. I went to the bedside when I had somebody that had cancer. I did that. So these people aren't just numbers. These aren't just employees you see sitting here. That's why they call me by name sometimes. This is why I'm here. And I'm not going to stop until these benefits get right. And I pray that this board will do the right thing and get these benefits where they need to be, because it's hurting our employees.
If the board has no objection to the recommendations, we'll go ahead and move forward, and we will work on the written policy to bring back for your approval as well.
Okay, is there any objections from the board to move forward and to include the 30-day window for them to become compliant, them being the employees of our county?
What will that cost?
Nothing.
Nothing.
There's no cost associated.
No, sir.
I had no problem.
Because right now they're out of compliance, but it was
Right.
definitely my desire that we give them a 30-day window. And another nudging for them to, because a healthy employee is a productive.
That's true.
employee. That's what we need, so. Sounds like nobody's opposed, so
Okay, well,
proceed forward.
we'll be contacting those employees one-on-one directly.
I have another question. When are we coming back to the board with a conclusion about these benefits that we passed along to them, the increase? When are we going to actually tackle that? I'm a be good. I went to training. I want to say something. Do we need to talk to somebody else to get this done? Or are we the board to get it done?
The COO and I will have a discussion, and at his directive, I'll be able to move forward. Is that okay, Dietrich?
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you again for all your work.
Okay. The board has added one additional discussion item. This will be ordinance 2017-61, and this is to amend the official code of Clayton County by adding a community improvement tax incentive program. Attorney Chuck Reed, will you be addressing this matter?
Mr. Reed?
How would you like me to address it?
Commissioner Edmondson, how would you like him to proceed?
I have a couple questions. Do you want to give an overview, Cobb County and whatnot, and how we got to this?
Sure. How this process or how this ordinance came into being is that Cobb County had initially started, they wanted to enact a blight tax, which would, for properties that were considered blighted, they would raise the mills rate on certain properties. It moved away from that and actually added what they called a tax incentive program. So it wasn't just the heavy hand. It was, well, if you do something about this, we will reward you with an improvement on your mills rate to actually bring it down. And so what is before you here is actually what was passed by Cobb County in their, it's probably been about a month, or maybe 2 months ago. And so I can just briefly go through it if you want that level of detail, or.
I have a question.
Sure.
If you say Cobb County passed it about a month ago, can you give us a little bit more evidence of someone that's had it in place a little bit longer than a month so that we can see the results?
Well,
do we have anything to base this on results?
The only county that I'm aware of in Georgia that has done this is Cobb.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so just briefly, going
Yes,
a little bit deeper into the weeds
okay.
for that.
Essentially, there's certain properties, and there's a description of what consists of a blighted property, and basically things that are uninhabited, don't meet code for at least a year, or they're identified as a site by the federal EPA. Very severe problems in certain areas. And what if that property is considered to be blighted, that there's a factor of 7 mills added to the ad valorem tax rate, but that only applies to properties that is not owned by or not inhabited by a person.
7 times, not 7 mills.
Right, 7 times, a factor of 7
Correct.
to the mills rate. And it is not just a whimsical determination. There's an actual process that has to go into place before it even can be considered. That has to be a request by at least 5 residents, or the person who's in charge would be the community development director, would be kind of shepherding this. He can either, or he or she, right now it'll be Mr. Ajike, he could either do a survey of a certain part of the county and identify certain places that would then be followed up by various personnel, or he could see one and actually address a particular property right then. There's a fairly significant process that is laid out here, in that they would have to have a inspection report. It'd have to go to court. It'd have to be a determination by a judge that this property meets this particular definition. And then once that happens, then notification will be made to the tax commissioner and the tax assessor. Then there's a voluntary remediation aspect to this, if the person whose property is declared to be blighted, they could come and say, hey, I want to do something about this. And there's a step-by-step process of how that person could get that designation removed. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the part that is why it's labeled a investment or related a tax incentive program is that there's another portion that if they spend up to $25,000, they get the blight condition removed from the property, then the county would apply a factor of to the county millage rate. So it would actually, as an incentive to do that, it would give them a slight benefit, but that only would last for no more than 2 years. And so if it's 25,000, it would be 1 year. If it was 50,000, it could be up to 2 years. And the person would have to provide proof that they actually spent that kind of money to get the property cleaned up. And this tax that would be applied would go into a separate funding source to be used to clean up the area.
So are we speaking of business, commercial?
Yes.
Uninhabited, though, right?
Well,
Property has to be uninhabited.
It could be uninhabited, but it says uninhabited, unsafe, or abandoned, but it's not necessarily limited to that. But it's certainly not residential homes is what we're talking about.
Not talking about residential, so are we also talking about like vacant lots?
Exactly. Or properties that if there was some sort of storm or some sort of fire and it's just sitting there and no one's doing anything about it, and if it's a residential property and it sat in that condition for a long period of time that wasn't covered under nuisance, then this could also apply to that. But primarily this would be for commercial.
So for example, I get calls all the time about some business that has closed its doors. The property has been overgrown, snakes, rats, everything else is going into the community or neighborhood behind the business. This is a great example of what we're trying to do here. Hold them accountable to clean up the property.
Exactly, and this is a step beyond even our normal things we could do with the nuisance. We could actually impose this process as well to affect the tax rate for that property as well.
Can we hold this for review and so that we all have a better understanding, because it all sounds like a great idea?
In this, yeah, there's no vote for it today.
Okay.
It's just really just to give you information about how
Okay,
this.
good, I'm sorry. I would like to get some more information on it. It sounds good, but I know we had something passed before us that we did previously, and, but the details weren't adding up, so I want to take a look at this a little bit further. I think we need to look into it, but we need to get some evidence to see where it can work and how it works.
Do you know anywhere else in the state of Georgia that does this?
The only other place that is doing this is Cobb County.
It's brand new, avant-garde, doing something different.
New is good, don't get me wrong, but we just need to, if we're all new to doing it, we don't know what should be there. We got to figure something
It has to
out.
start somewhere though, so.
Yeah, we do.
Okay,
I have
any other
questions.
questions?
Yes. I do. Jack, help me walk through the process. So, a complaint must be made by the public officer or a group of at least 5 citizens, or the public officer's designee. So, community development director, his or her designee, or a group of 5.
Yes.
Right?
And it has to be in writing, so.
I understand. So, just going through these points. So, an inspection must be performed.
That's correct.
It must be in writing.
So if you're looking at section 90-103 proposed,
Right. So, number 1, an inspection must be performed.
well, the first thing would be an inspection, and what would trigger that inspection would be either the public officer or the 5 residents, or a survey where he sends somebody out to go look at that. Correct.
That's right. Okay. So, an inspection is performed, followed up with a written inspection report of the findings.
Correct.
Then a determination by said public officer as to whether it's blighted or not.
That's
So
correct.
you get a complaint, you inspect it, you do a written report, and make a determination if it's blighted. If it is determined by the public officer, then the property owner has an opportunity to voluntarily remediate.
That's correct. After they're given notice too that there's.
After the given notice, right? Due process. If not, it goes to magistrate court. Magistrate court determines, right, 6, 7, 8, if the magistrate court finds is blighted, then. So, complaint inspection, report, determination, voluntary mediation, magistrate court makes a final decision.
That's correct.
Okay. If I go to a typical ordinance violation right now, the tools that we have available to us today, we have code enforcement, we have commercial code enforcement, and we have building code enforcement, right?
That's correct.
Zoning administrators also, so we've got police, community development, planning and zoning, so we've got inspectors all over. If they write a citation, they can't give that citation unless they have the property owner within jurisdiction to give said violation to.
Typically, that's correct.
Well, when
There's
is that
some
not typical?
Well, if the person is not present, you could give notice, they could publish notice, that kind of stuff. As long as the person is, if the person doesn't necessarily have to be.
My next door neighbors, the house next to me is owned by somebody in Alaska. They never come down here. They've never cut the grass. How are you going to cite them?
There are certain processes under Georgia law that gives notice to the person. You could
Do we do those routinely? Well, I'm trying to get the determination of is the magistrate court from, and I'm not in any way criticizing, has a history of waiving, excusing, first time, you cut the grass, don't worry about the fee. What I'm getting at is if we're talking about a 7 times the property tax incentive to bring something in compliant, typically a larger thing, $25,000 than we threw around, where are the teeth? I have magistrate court right now, it is September. We condemned the Magnolia Hotel in December of last year. Going on 10 months, and they still have leniency to bring it up to code. Now, if there's not an example of a blighted property in Clayton County better than that, I don't know what it is. So how does this move it forward better, faster, harder, further than our current code?
All right, so that's a two-part question.
It is.
The first part, when we're dealing with just regular code enforcement, where you're just talking about your garden variety, you violate a particular code, typically those are done in magistrate. You get notice to the person who's there. You're talking about a nuisance where this is a long-standing problem. The person is absentee. We don't know how to get to there. There's a whole separate process that involves giving certain notices, providing.
No, that's my question. That's what I was trying to get you to. This doesn't state that there has to be a notice.
Well, yeah. Well, there is a
right.
There is a
an
requirement.
Inspection, a report, a determination, an opportunity to remediate. Then it goes to magistrate. So, do we get to skip that step?
No. If you look at subsection 3 at 90-103, A3, it says that there.
Following the determination.
Mm-hmm. It says the public officer shall cause a written notice of his determination that the real property at issue is being maintained in a blighted condition to be mailed via first-class mail and emailed, if known, to the person shown on the most recent tax digest of Clayton County as responsible for the payment of ad valorem taxes assessed thereon.
Chuck.
Right.
What's the advantage of this as opposed to what we have in place already?
Well, with nuisance, there is
times the mill rate.
Right. With nuisance, exactly. It's the mill's incentive. Mm-hmm. With nuisance, you're basically just trying to get the process or trying to get the property back into compliance.
Voluntary compliance.
Right.
Right.
Okay, so thank you for your patience. So the timeline. So my yard's got unreasonable grass. I don't live here. It's a rental. Code enforcement comes to me, knocks to my door, mails it. Still haven't cited me, so I am still not in contempt of court for showing up because I've yet to be cited because I'm not physically within the jurisdiction. Right now, you can ultimately get to a forced clean, a lien, a tax lien, or whatever, but I have yet to be cited because I'm not here. Right. You can notify me, but I'm still not cited because that's due process.
Correct.
That applies to this also.
Can we ask that question?
Yes and no. That process, what we're looking at here for this type of ordinance is for things that are beyond just your regular.
No, I think it's great. I'm supportive of the concept. I'm just saying, is the magistrate judge going to say the same thing? Sorry, you didn't cite that guy. You mailed it to his last known tax address, but too bad. You can't raise his property tax?
No, I don't necessarily think that the judge
That's what they
will,
usually do. I'm
I
just
would
saying, it
say
seems like
it's-
it's
I would
getting to the same place, right?
I would say that typically, in my experience, magistrate court tries to ensure that the citizens get due process.
Sure, and then they should, and I think that that's wonderful.
And so if there's a way that they can work things, if there's a way that they can arrive at that, then they'll say, well, look, make sure you get them served or something along those lines. If the person comes in and they have and again, we're talking about apples and oranges to some degree because you're talking about the code enforcement type, you didn't cut your grass.
Well, how is
They
this
say,
different?
Well, this
Okay,
particular,
let's go to this one then. So, complaint made by the census, the public officer, or a group of 5 or more residents. An inspection is performed, a written inspection report is provided, a determination is made, voluntary compliance remediation is offered, right, before it gets to magistrate court. Now, the definition from page 1, the definition of a blight is to be blighted in a blighted state for a year or more.
exactly.
So where does that calendar date start? The date of the report or affidavits by the 5 people that signed the application beforehand?
Yes, I would. If the person came, it's either one of 2 ways. If the public officer, and again, I would think that we're talking about maintenance, we would probably not want to use this for someone who didn't cut their grass.
Okay,
for a
let's
year.
use Magnolia Hotel,
Okay,
all right? That's been a topic for a
all
year.
right, all right.
When
So
does my year start?
it starts from the first time someone makes a designation or makes a report that this property is not in.
Okay. So Mr. Ojiki decides to go over there tomorrow morning and do an inspection, generate a written report with the determination, and notify them via first-class mail.
Now,
Now,
again,
that's when the blight calendar starts, right?
in certain things. Now, if it automatically, see, if you look at 1A, if it was uninhabitable, unsafe, or abandoned, we don't have to wait a year for that. It's only for this catch-all is on F. The maintenance of the property is below state or county codes for at least a year. So we have,
So county code, uninhabitable, the grass is too tall. Uninhabitable is a county code, right?
yes.
Now, is it legally, I guess I'm challenging the teeth of this, and I love it, and I'm the one who asked for it to be on the agenda, so if the county hasn't condemned the property as of the date of the report, then how can the county argue that it was uninhabitable prior to the date of the report? For the purposes of going before magistrate and asking for a 700% increase in millage rate?
That the report would have to be made. We'll just use the Magnolia as an example. Let's say we're not talking about grass. We're talking about a property that is, in disrepair, uninhabitable.
Well, who determines uninhabitable? Because if it's not condemned, the determination hasn't been made.
Well, they can make it it's unsafe or it's abandoned.
Okay.
Okay, so this is something that's brand new. What precludes us from crafting it the way we want to look at it ourselves?
There's nothing. If there's additional language that you'd like me to put in here, that
So let me make this recommendation then.
Okay.
That, get some input from each commissioner as to the way it's structured now or how we can make it fit Clayton County's needs. And then take another look at it and have another discussion at a later date.
And
But
some of
we're-
that
we're
has been
getting
done
bogged
already.
down on this.
Yeah, some of
And
that has
we're
been
not
done
prepared
already.
to do
That's
anything.
my request to be a discussion item. I had added it to
And we
the-
appreciate that.
change that. I have one final question. Cobb County's rationale, if you followed their process for the incentive, that dropping it down to 0.2 of the normal millage rate for the 2 years following, coming into compliance, is there some sort of a legal reason for that, or is that just to be nice, or what?
My understanding is just they wanted to use as an incentive. It wasn't like you can only do it by that amount, but they probably didn't want to go but so far.
Okay.
So, I mean, if you wanted to change that amount or take that out, that's certainly within your right to do so.
One last question. The 7 times the millage rate, is that considered a millage rate? I mean, will it go to FIFO if they don't pay it, or is this different?
It's a tax. Yes, it's
It's not just a ordinance violation based on a formula that includes the millage. It's a tax. Tax commissioner can come get that property if the tax commissioner so
And that can be a
inclined
whole
for,
another set of problems.
regardless of the 2-year incentive. Okay, thank you very much. I think it's great work.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Any other questions? No, thank you very much. Appreciate
I
it.
I have a question.
Sure.
How long did y'all meet on this before bringing it to the board?
How long did I meet with it?
It was just brought to the board. Sounds like we need to do some more back end.
I'm sorry, I
Okay,
didn't hear the question.
let's move on before we
I
get
didn't hear the
started.
question.
All right, Madam Clerk.
Okay. Attorney Reed, if you would, please, if you'll continue with the resolutions and the remaining action items.
And please take them together unless the commissioner wants to single one out.
Which one is this one again, Art?
These are resolutions. Hold on a second.
With the exception of 13.
13 was 12, so we're back to 12. The bonds.
Take 13 out.
You want to take what out?
13 was already
13 is
moved.
out.
No, we already
We already
removed
took
it.
that out.
Okay, that's fine. I'll ask questions.
Okay, go ahead. Proceed on, please. Take them all together.
Okay. Resolution 2017-60 is a resolution approving the issuance of revenue bonds by the Housing Authority of Clayton County for the benefit of TBG Renaissance Senior LP to finance the acquisition, rehabilitation, and equipping of an approximately 160-unit multifamily housing project for seniors consisting of 1 and 2 bedroom apartments located on an approximately 12-acre site at 639 Garden Walk Boulevard in an aggregate principal amount of not to exceed $11,500,000, to authorize the chairman to perform all acts necessary to accomplish the intent of this resolution, to provide an effective date of this resolution for other purposes. Resolution 2017-62 is a resolution authorizing Commissioner Gail Hambrick to partner with Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport's parking company, ABM Lanier Hunt, to host a job fair at the Virginia Gray Recreation Center, to authorize the chairman to perform all acts necessary to accomplish the intent of this resolution, to provide an effective date of this resolution for other purposes. Resolution 2017-64 is a resolution to amend the purchase and sale agreement with Highwoods Realty Limited Partnership to extend the due diligence period, to authorize the chairman to execute the amendment, to provide an effective date of this resolution and for other purposes. 17 is the United Way Impact Grant Fund. The Clayton County Cooperative Extensive Services Department is requesting the Board of Commissioners approve to accept grant funds from United Way Impact Fund for the continuation of the Parents as Teachers program, further to authorize the chairman to execute the agreement and otherwise perform all acts necessary to accomplish the intent of the agreement, to authorize the chief financial officer to amend the budget where necessary to reflect an appropriate revenue source and expense. All as may be required under the terms of this agreement. 18 is the Clayton County Police Department's request that the Board of Commissioners approve a mutual aid agreement between the Clayton State University Police Department, an agency of Clayton State University, an institution within the University System of Georgia, and the Clayton County Police Department, an agency of the Clayton County Board of Commissioners. And this is a continuation of the agreement executed by the Board of Commissioners in 2012. Further, to authorize the chairman to execute the agreement, otherwise perform all acts necessary to accomplish the intent of the agreement, to authorize the chief financial officer to amend the budget where necessary to reflect an appropriate revenue source and expense. All as may be required under the terms of the agreement. 19 is the Clayton County Fire Department requesting that the Board of Commissioners approve the Robert T. Stafford Disaster Relief and Emergency Assistance Act as amended by the Disaster Mitigation Act of 2000. It's a requirement that local jurisdictions adopt a mitigation plan in order to be eligible for post-disaster and hazard grants to implement certain mitigation projects. Further, to authorize the chairman to execute the agreement, otherwise perform all acts necessary to accomplish the intent of the agreement. To authorize the chief financial officer to amend the budget where necessary to reflect an appropriate revenue source and expense. All as may be required under the terms of the agreement. 20 is the Clayton County Senior Services Department requesting the Board of Commissioners approve to accept Promoting Safe and Stable Families, PSSF, grant funds for Kinship Care Resource Center, fiscal year 2018. Federal award is 75%, $75,000. It's a required cash match by the county of $25,000. For total cost of services is $100,000. There's no financial impact to the county as the grant allows staff salaries to be used as the cash match. Further, to authorize the chairman to execute the agreement, to otherwise perform all acts necessary to accomplish the intent of the agreement, to authorize the chief financial officer to amend the budget where necessary to reflect an appropriate revenue source and expense. All as may be required under the terms of the agreement. Number 21 is the Clayton County Police Department's request for permission to retain unclaimed property in its custody pursuant to OCGA Section 17-5-54E. The police department petitioned the Superior Court of Clayton County for an order to retain this property, and the court granted the petition in civil action file number 2017 CV 02850-12. Further, to authorize the chief financial officer, central services, and the chief operating officer to take all actions necessary to achieve the intent of this request. Item 22 is the Clayton County Community Development Department requests that the Board of Commissioners approve the HUD 2017 to 2021 Assessment of Fair Housing Study. The Community Development Department will submit its study of the county's assessment of fair housing to the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development on October 2nd, 2017. Prior to the submission, the county must complete its public notification and participation process, which concludes with the approval of the study by the Board of Commissioners. The HUD Programs Division is submitting a legislative request along with the AFH Executive Summary for BOC review in advance of its regularly scheduled meeting on September 5th, 2017. Item 23 is a request from the Clayton County Transportation and Development Department that the Board of Commissioners approve to authorize the certification and submittal of the county's municipal separate storm sewer system 2016-2017 annual report to Georgia's Environmental Protection Division. And the last item is an order for remission from Carlos Morales Ponce and State of Georgia versus Carlos Morales Ponce, defendant in Carlos Morales Ponce surety, case number 2015 CR 075075 for $1,950.
Did we omit 16? Did we get number 16? Resolution 64?
My apologies. Resolution 2017-63.
64. You got that?
Oh, no, I did do 16.
Okay.
You read it.
Okay.
Okay, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions on any of the items?
Yes, on the $11 million, $11,000,005.
Please. Let's have order.
Resolution 2017-60. Who acted as the bond attorney on that?
Carol Smith.
Is that with your firm? Which firm?
She is with, she is the regular bond counsel, the regular bond counsel for the Housing Authority.
Okay.
Can't remember what the name of the firm is.
And on that, can you state whether the county would be responsible for those bonds?
They're not. They're
The
just revenue
liability.
bonds.
No. This is a process that the.
Can you state that? I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, the county is not responsible for this. This is the process that in order for the Housing Authority to be able to have authority to do that, it has to go through the county and get a county approval. That's just part of the bond process.
Okay. And when is the last time they issued a bond out of the Housing Authority?
A couple of months ago, I think it was maybe July, June, July, something like that.
Because I looked at the records. I think we have 5 million. What was the amount outstanding? Okay, it was like 5 million.
That sounds about right.
Okay. One other question. According to what I researched today, at the last minute, we're supposed to be receiving minutes from the Housing Authority as well as other things. Are we receiving those?
I don't know that. That would be a question to
Ms. Davis?
Commissioner
clerk?
Warner, yes, we are receiving
We are
those
receiving
minutes.
those?
Yes, we are.
Okay, wonderful.
Reference to this bond, this is the same type of bond that we had about a year ago. We turned it down, correct?
Mm-hmm.
This is new construction.
New construction?
Yes. This is for acquisition, rehabilitation, and equipping.
And it's for seniors where we need to be putting
Yes.
some teeth into.
So what's the location? It's 639 Garden Walk Boulevard. Doesn't that already exist in the apartment
No.
complex?
No, that's an empty lot,
It's empty lot?
empty space, yes.
And $11 million is gonna build.
Can
That's
we
at the
see that on
corner
Google
of,
Earth?
Senior housing.
Senior housing at the corner
Nobody's-
of Garden
nobody's,
Walk, and I'm trying to tell you where it
opposed to
is.
senior housing.
Lee's
Right.
Mill, down from that elementary school,
Right,
right on
So
the
it's an
corner.
empty lot.
right.
It's an empty lot.
639 shares the same address, I believe. I could be wrong. Old Advantages apartment.
Okay,
Are they still in operations? But there's some
Okay.
empty space there.
Yes, at the
Backside.
corner of Garden Walk and Lee's Mill Road,
okay,
District 2.
Gotcha.
okay. We got that,
Are
Commissioner.
we clear on that?
I understand that, Commissioner. I must say this, though, that's a
Senior
sweet.
housing.
Yes, ma'am. That's a sweet spot we need to do more in. I do
Thank
hear you
you.
on that. Again, I just didn't have all the information. So I gotta ask the question
Any
before I
other
vote.
questions? Any other questions? All right, hearing none. Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous.
We'd like to request an executive session on employment, real estate, and litigation.
Thank you.
Item number 28, this is an appointment to the Development Authority, Redevelopment Authority Board, and
They
the
held
Urban.
those.
Madam Clerk, I'd like to make a recommendation of Dr. Tim Gilrain.
Which one was that?
And they kept this
Is there a
one.
second?
Second.
Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
4-1. It passes.
I don't know who it is.
It passes. 4-1.
Okay. Item number. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Commissioner. Item number 29, this is an appointment to the Family and Children's Services Board to fill the unexpired term of Deborah Lazarus, who has resigned. This term expires on June 30th, 2018. This is a full board appointment. Are there any nominations? Hearing none, the last four appointments are to the Mental Health, Developmental Disabilities, and Addictive Diseases Community Service Board. The first is to fill the expiring term of Ansel Davis. Are there any nominations?
Yes, I would like to reappoint Ansel Davis.
I'll second it. Those in favor, aye.
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 Opposed? It's unanimous.
The next is to fill the expiring term of Bernie Bowmaster. This term is for 3 years, expiring on October 7, 2020. This is a full board appointment. Are there any nominations? Hearing none, the next is to fill the expiring term of Brian Flowers. This term expires on October 7, 2020. This is a full board appointment. Are there any nominations? And the last is to fill the expiring term of Martin Thompson. This term is also expiring on October 7, 2020. This is a full board appointment. Are there any nominations? Hearing none. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, this does conclude this evening's agenda. If there is no further business to discuss, there was a request to go into executive session for real estate and litigation. Is that correct? And personnel? And personnel.
Litigation. All right, is there a motion going to executive session?
So move.
I'll second. Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Have a good evening, everyone. All right, motion to reconvene.
So moved.
Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Mr. Reed.
All right. The first item, Mr. Chairman, is to request authorization to execute documents necessary to convey property to the city of Jonesboro. This is relating to the Clayton County Regional Law Enforcement Academy located in the city of Jonesboro. Just requesting approval to have you execute documents related to that.
Take them all together.
Okay.
No, that one
So
needs to be
moved.
Oh, wait a minute,
separate.
wait a minute, wait a
And
minute.
it's not in the city of Jonesboro, it's in unincorporated.
Okay.
No, the transfer
It's the
Conveyance
right,
of
it's
the property.
to the city.
To
No,
the
he
city.
said located in the city of Jonesboro. It's not located in the city.
Let me rephrase that then, so it's clear for the record.
Right.
This is a recommendation to transfer the Clayton County Regional Law Enforcement Academy located on Commercial Court in
What's the numbers?
unincorporated Clayton
Cite the
County.
numbers. You have the numbers there?
It's 1560
Okay.
Commercial Court, unincorporated Clayton County, to transfer that property to the city of Jonesboro and to authorize the chairman to execute documents necessary for that purpose.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? I'll second it. Properly moved and second. Any questions? Hearing none, those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
4-1, it passes. Next.
All right, the next, and you want to take the rest of it all together?
Yes.
Okay, the next is a request for authorization to approve up to $30,000 to fund a portion of the FAA Public Relations,
To hire a public relations firm.
to hire a public relations firm for up to $30,000 for FAA negotiations.
Is there anything else? that we're
Yes,
voting
and then the second item is a request that the board approve a settlement agreement in the amount of $12,500 relating to Anthony Williams in an incident on August 30th, 2016 at the intersection of Georgia 138 and Crown Way in incorporated city of Jonesboro, Georgia. And the third is a settlement agreement with Brittany Richardson on August 30th, 2016 at the intersection of Georgia 138 and Crown Way in the incorporated city of Jonesboro for $12,500.
So moved.
That's
on?
it.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? I'll second. Any questions on any of the items? Hearing none, those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Chairman, I make a motion to go home.
Go home.
I'm gonna make a second on that. Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Hey.
Opposed? It's unanimous.